My first question that I had for you, and all the questions I have for you actually pertain closely to you because I know you, is about the mental health side, that have the mental health side within men. So what's it like for people and men who struggle with mental health issues and basically just don't know like don't know how to operate with that type of side of them, or don't know how to express themselves or feel ostracized because they are going through something at such a young age. So
Right.
what is your experience of said things, and how what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah. I think it's kind of one or the other situation that causes kind of exponential increase in that struggle people face, because it's either you have one side saying talking about toxic masculinity, whatever you want to define that is, and it's this image of a man, and then you also have the other side where it's just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and be tough and don't show emotion. And then I think when especially young men find themselves in the middle of that, it just adds to what they're already feeling, whether it be a breakup or not making a team. And then you find yourself experiencing emotions, which everyone experiences, but based on what you've seen and now what you're feeling doesn't align with what you might have viewed yourself as. So like for me, I struggled with it a lot in high school, and I had never really encountered feeling that way. And when I did, it made me question, like, man, like all I've heard is men should be tough and
A certain way
brush
and
it
shit.
off. And then because I'm feeling that way, I'm no longer seeing myself as that. And because I'm no longer seeing myself as that, it makes me feel more of those emotions, and it kind of just tumbles and tumbles. So I think it's just a lot of men don't really know where they fit in, and it's made to seem like you have to be an extreme one way or the other, but a lot of people I think are somewhere in the middle of that.
That's actually a very good point, because I remember when we were in high school, and when you were going through that breakup, it was a completely different side of you, and
Right.
like it was like it affected more than just like your day to day. It didn't affect our friendship because that's just I think it didn't affect our friendship mainly because of just the type of people that we are.
Yeah.
But it definitely affected like your everyday, like even at practice, you were just like at competitions, at meets, you were just different. And I'm like, and even after high school, like right after high school, before I went off to the military and you went off to college and shit, when we hung out with our old friend group, that was a big part of that. That was like you weren't distant, but it was, I could tell you were like a shell of yourself because you were how much you were going through. And I'm gonna be real. I think our last friendship group, honestly, me speaking from the mental health side, I think our last friendship group definitely took a huge toll on me.
Yeah.
It took a huge toll on me, mainly because like, well, obviously but like, it was just the fact that I put so much trust into those people and that much belief, and I really like, I'm not gonna sit here and say I sacrificed for them and stuff like that, but like it was a friendship. We did friendship shit. The fact that at the end of the day, everything kind of switched and turned back onto me when I was like one of the genuinest people in the group, that kind of fucked with my mental health a little bit as being a man, because I'm like, yeah, what's happening is hurting my feelings, and I miss these for people, like for the time being. I miss them, and then it was like, but like, should I miss them? Am I being a bitch, or am I being weird about this shit, or am I like over exaggerating? And that whole cycle until after I came back from the military and stuff, and that whole cycle really was just like, I don't even know why I'm worried about it so much. It was like stages of like grief. I was in denial, and I was trying to accept it, and then I was hurt. Like all that, it's like a long term effect on people. me now, I'm happy in life and stuff like that, married, children. But that going forward, that definitely still not affects me, but it's like, damn, like I wish that there was like, I wish still now to this day, I wish that I could like sit down with, fuck it, all of them really, and just kind of just clear the air of what was going on and what happened, because that it doesn't sit right. And you hit the nail on the head when you said like it made you start to question yourself on I'm not living up to these like societal men values. So am I even like what am I really doing? Like what am I supposed to be doing and stuff like that?
And I think another part is because like even going into like the numbers of like men are 4 times more likely to commit suicide than women. And I think another part of it is, at least I know for me, sometimes you don't feel like expressing it all or being the center of that attention and reaching out for help, because it can sometimes come across as, because I'm in need, I'm neglecting the needs of other people or other groups, where it should be just like I'm in need too. It doesn't have to be either like the focus is on men or the focus is on women or the focus is on young people or focus is on older people. It's, you can have all of those things. It's not because I need help and I'm asking for help that I'm saying other people don't also. I think just a lot of people would rather hold it in and not be the center of that attention and kind of try to either, you know, muscle through it and just deal with it rather than be vulnerable in that way.
Do you think do you think some people are meant to just muscle through it? It's not like that's genuinely the only way.
I think that definitely works for some people.
Okay. Because I think my perspective on it is, honestly, besides the friendship shit, like I've gone through a bunch of mentally, you know, tragic things and stuff. So I've always kind of been like, not to be like, oh, just thug it out, but like I've always learned to look at life as the glass half full aspect of things. Like, well, it could always be this worse, or it can't be this worse, and it can't be that worse. And that definitely helped me kind of like process things and understand, like, all right, well, maybe if I look at things this way, then it's going to help me heal in the long term, in the long run. And that's something that I, you know, want to teach my kids. So it's like, but at the same time, wanting to teach my kids that is like, maybe that's not how they're going to, maybe that's not for them. Maybe they are going to be able to, maybe they're not going to be able to just sit there in their own thoughts and stuff like that. Because sitting in your thoughts, as you know, is like one of the most dangerous things for men when you're really in the shit, when you're really going through something. Being by yourself is probably the last thing that you want to do. And you and I were both in extremely dark times where we were by ourselves and we're like, nah, we thought the craziest shit in the world. So
it gets, there's a saying I like where it gets to the point where you can't drown out your demons because they learn how to swim. Like it gets to a point where, like for me, I got to a point where I was almost more comfortable knowing that one constant was like those demons or those things in my head. And it's, I know it probably doesn't make any sense to someone who hasn't experienced it, but it's almost like you get into a cycle of getting your hopes up and then let down, hopes up, let down. And then eventually you're like, well, I know the one thing I can rely on is I am going to be depressed. And then for me, I just kind of in my head was like, well, this is just how it's always going to be, because you know, I might have a week where we're having a good time with our friend group, or I'm doing good in school, good in football or track or whatever. But then it's like I have times where I feel really, really, really down. And then it's like that almost becomes the home base rather than being happy and quote unquote normal is the home base.
It's like resetting your standards to be the lowest they could possibly be. So if anything good happens, it's like, oh shit, yeah, cool.
Yeah,
Like,
but if something bad happens, you're like, well,
it's
I
like
expected
I
it.
expected it,
Yeah,
but
which is not a good way to
it's
live life.
it's not. But in certain cases, like when I'm going into something new, I always expect the worst thing possible. It's like, okay, like even with the podcast, the YouTube, I was just like, what if the first episode everything goes wrong, and then the audio was shit on the first episode, and I was just like, okay, cool, like,
Right.
but and you're right, in certain aspects of life, like you can't just expect the worst to happen, because when that shit actually does happen, even if you expected it, your body's not, your mind isn't like prepared to take that hit and shit like that.
Also, I think age helps with that too. Like when you said the first one, the audio, and then you were kind of like, okay, like let's learn and move on from it. But like, I feel like in high school or younger, your scope of the world is so much smaller that you might think it means everything.
Yeah, I would have gave up.
Yeah,
I would have given up quick. Once that first shit came out, I would have been like, yeah, this is not for me.
But now you know this happens, and it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, and that's something that, I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna be honest, that's something that you've taught me, like indirectly taught me, basically, like, because watching you go through all that stuff and watching like how serious shit got for you, I used to think like in my mind, I'm like, okay, however the fuck he's processing his emotions, I have to do the complete opposite.
Yeah.
Because it's clearly not working for him. And then there was a time, I remember there's times where you'd be so down and hard on yourself, and I'd be going through something crazy, but I was like, okay, we both can't be two sad niggas in the room.
Right.
That's not gonna work. So I'm like, fuck it. I'm going to try to uplift, and now everybody knows me to be like, oh, Cornell's he's a good time. He's always cracking jokes, whatever the case may be, even though I was fighting my own demons.
Right.
But that's just, I've learned a way to fight them. I've learned a way to, cool. They learn how to swim. I build a boat.
Right.
So I get away from them faster. So everybody has their different ways of dealing with certain things. And tying into that now, how do you, with all the mental health stuff that goes on with men and stuff like that, how do you feel like the mental health stuff ties into being sacrificing your happiness for literally anything? Kind of just like sacrificing your happiness for your social status, your career status, your like relationship status. Like I feel like a lot of people in general don't understand how hard it is for a guy, like a man, and a good guy, like not like just every guy, because not every guy goes through this, but guys who actually have like family men, people with careers and stuff like that, like how hard it is to actually having this and like still having fun at the same time.
Yeah.
Like when me and you in high school, we were the best track athletes ever. We were 1A, 1B. And then my senior year, I was number one player in the nation at safety. I was this, I was that. I didn't go to the college, I didn't go to the league, I didn't do it. I sacrificed myself for my happiness, for my current wife, the love of my life. I was like, okay, if I don't do this, I'm gonna do this. At the time, it was hard. I'm like, okay, I'm getting offers from these schools, I'm getting this, I'm getting that, but if I go to these schools, I know myself. I'm 18? I'm young, I'm dumb. If I go to a college, I'm probably gonna do something stupid. I'm gonna lose the love of my life. Yeah. So, how do you, what's your stance on people sacrificing their happiness, or kind of just balancing happiness and sacrifice?
Yeah. I just think it's a balance, and going back to my mental health stuff, there was a point where I felt like I was on one end where I was always sacrificing my own happiness to please others or come off a certain way. And then kind of after I went through all my stuff, I was the opposite, where I'm like, well, life is all about just doing what makes you happy, and I should do anything that makes me happy and not care about anything else. And you have to kind of meet in the middle at some point. But also I've found that, and I don't know if you feel the same way, but you get a sense of happiness from doing the things you have to do. Like, do I like going to a 9 to 5 every day and sitting at a desk and not enjoying it? No, but something about that gives me gratification, satisfaction that, okay, I'm doing this to put food on the table. It's not just me, but to contribute to something.
Mm-hmm. Something bigger than yourself.
Right. Or even like not certain habits, not smoking, not drinking. While you're doing it, yes, it's fun and it feels good, but it's also some type of satisfaction when you know you can be disciplined enough to not do those things because you know it's better for your health, or you know you're better in your relationship when you're not doing those things. So I mean, it's not easy by any means to balance what makes me happy and what are things I don't want to do, but I have to do because it's either bettering myself, my relationship, the world in general. But I definitely think it's hard.
Okay. I have a question. Do you think that more people should take that into account? More people should, because I feel like that way of thinking is more of like, so you know the saying, I'm not here for a long time, I'm here for a fun time. I'm here for a good time.
Yeah.
I feel like it's the opposite of that, the way that you operate. Fuck, I operate too.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing stuff now so we can enjoy ourselves.
Right,
later.
exactly.
Right? Do you think more people should think like that?
I don't know if I would say more people should, but I think everyone should at least consider it. I mean, I think it's only going short-term happiness or gratification, but you know in the long run it's not good for you, is probably not the way to go on all situations in life. Okay. I mean, I'm not going to say you need to be the most disciplined person and just only think about the future, because it's like, you know, before you know it, the future is the present. Like you are 60 or 70 and your whole life you spent like
drinking,
constraining yourself because you think, well, it's going to be good for me in the future. And then you look back and it's like, well, I never really got an opportunity to take advantage of all the things I was doing in the past for my now present self.
Okay, that's interesting, because I kind of have a different take on me being a family man. I think of it like this, and it changed after, you know, the family got here. I have no problem working and kind of sacrificing myself now for the benefit of my people's future. Right. Mm-hmm. So, in some cases, I get like I've talked to like old veterans, and they're like, yeah, I did 40 years in the military, or I did 40 years serving this and that. Like, he's like, my kids don't ever have to go to school. Like, they go to school for free now. Mm-hmm. He said, I'm like, I worked my life away and I'm broken now and stuff like that. But he says he has over 10 grandchildren that come over to him, and he sees them and he sees his kids, and like, cause everybody understands and they appreciate like what they did for him, mm-hmm. what he did for them. So mm-hmm. It's like, his case was a little extreme, but I get the sentiments that he was like trying to go for. Like, I get what he was going for. Like, yeah. I have no problem doing that. So if I'm 50 and I'm like, damn, I could actually chill and relax, mm-hmm. but my daughters are taken care of, I think that's a win in my book. Yeah. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, like me now, like when I'm 30, I'm probably gonna be like, damn, I want to actually do something that's gonna mm-hmm. fulfill me. Like, what's the difference? Who's to say? What's the difference between traveling to fucking Costa Rica at 30 than traveling at 50? Right. Is it the things that you're gonna do?
Right.
Because then I feel like that kind of leads into like that young aspect, or not even the young aspect of like temptations. Mm-hmm. Why do you want to be 30 and go to Costa Rica?
Yeah.
If like, it's for the things that you can be able to do. Mm-hmm. I feel like I could have the same amount of fun going there now than I could 30 years from now. Right. I may not be able to move the same, yeah. But.
Well, I guess I'm saying that, I'm not saying, like, I agree with everything you just said. I'm saying, like, at some point, and it takes different forms, like you said, like the guy who now his grandkids can come over and he knows his family's taken care of. I'm more so saying that there has to be a point where you are able to reap the rewards of your previous sacrifices.
Would you say seeing your family good and settled for
Yeah.
the next 2 generations?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So you
Okay.
worked your whole life really hard, and you worked late nights and weekends, and during that it wasn't the best experience, but you knew it was because, okay, in 40, 30 years I'm going to have saved this much up and my family's going to be good. And I'm just saying there has to be a point where you reap those rewards. Like you don't want to be like, well, when I'm 60, I'll feel like I did enough, and then 60 comes around and you say, well, no, when I'm 70, and then before you know it, you can't have kids or you can't walk, or you can't, like.
I'm gonna be honest, that's one of my like biggest things in like life though. Like people kind of who wait to have like, whether kids or start a family or just kind of like expand their bloodline, their own bloodline, like because they want to, because of their own personal like success. That's like ties into the next question that I had, like how do you feel like it's people when people don't meet their own expectations for life or just for little things, like when people don't. I have a friend, and she's like, she just finished her residency in like the hospital stuff. I don't know what it's called and stuff like that, but she's on to the next level. And she's like, yeah, I'm keep going. I gotta keep going. She's like 34, and I'm not no like scientist, but I know, I'm pretty sure as you get older, it's harder to have children. And she said she wants to have 2 children. She wants to birth her own 2 children. I'm like, well, maybe you should, you should probably try to start.
Right.
Like, but she's like, no, I'm not where I want to be in my own career. So that's gonna have to hold off. And I'm like, I get that, and I'm not wishing children on anybody.
Right.
But if that's something that you really desired, like your entire life, why not go for that? Why not do it? Like, fuck it. Okay, even if you're really high in the hospital game and whatever the case may be, but you know that as a woman, it's going to be harder the further it gets. She's been with this guy for maybe like, I'm not gonna lie, like 12 years. So I'm like, okay. Yeah. And she says, oh yeah, he wants to have children. I'm like, you're not getting any younger. It's not gonna get any easier. Right. And she was just like,
will there be a right time?
Yeah, will there be a right? That's basically what it is. Like, there's never really the perfect time to have a kid, but you have your own house, you have your own car, you have your own money, you have a very good, stable career. So does he. Yeah. You know, it's okay to go and try to have that kid. She's so afraid of losing where she's at in her own career that she's like, a kid's gonna slow me down, and this is gonna. I'm like, yeah, it is. Yes, I'm not gonna lie. It 100% is. It's going to piss you off. It's gonna keep you up at night. It's gonna make you angry. But that's what it's not. It's about after that. It's about continuing whatever. It's people have kids for their own reasons. A lot of people think that. A lot of people have kids. A lot of people have kids just have kids. But everybody has have kids to have their own reason. Like my reason was like. I like, and you know my wife. I love that woman. I want to keep that the amount of love and strength that we have together. I want to put it in a little package and send it off. And that's a baby. That's a child. Fuck it. And I want that to keep going because I feel like our love is super strong for each other. And if that could keep on passing down generation to generation to generation, I just want to see it. And why not? So. That's my thing. Like, how do you feel about people who kind of stop themselves because they're so focused on their own personal careers?
I mean, you know me. My main thing is like kind of to each their own. Yeah. I think everyone has their own reasons for doing whatever they do, and I've always believed like if that's why, like, you know, it takes a lot for me to get upset with something someone does, because in my head I'm thinking, well, that's what they genuinely thought was best for them. Like, I don't know who I am to tell someone when to start this career, when to have kids, or when to get married, or anything like that. But I think the big thing, like you were alluding to, is certain decisions like that affect more than just you. Like waiting that long because you don't feel, I mean, if you don't feel ready for kids, you don't feel ready for kids. You shouldn't have kids probably. But if you're considering having kids, you're considering what's best for them, I'm assuming, then maybe you realize it's more important to do it now and sacrifice some of your own personal wants or goals for the meantime and focus on that in order to give them a better future. But like I said, everyone has their own reasons and situations, and it's hard to make a generalized opinion about that, I guess.
That's fair. That's fair. I should have known that you'd give that answer. I should have known that you'd give that answer. I don't know. It doesn't bother me, but it's like sometimes I just feel bad for certain people because a lot of people in this world, they can't have children and they can't they just can't get into the career that they want. So I kind of feel for them a little bit because it's like what they really truly want to do in life, like they just can't, they physically can't do it. So right. that kind of sits bad with me sometimes when people are just like, oh no, I don't want to do this, or I don't want to do this. Or I'm like, well, you have the opportunity to do it, whether it be going to this career path or do this or this and that. They're like, I don't want to do it because it's this. But like, I know a couple of people who've given up careers because they're like, well, it's not in, or it's not like, there's so I know a girl, she was wanting to be a teacher and she dropped out, she switched over to coding because they get paid more money, but she really always all her life wanted to be a teacher. I said, you're probably going to regret that later on in life. And she was just like, no, but I'm going to be rich. I'm like, I'm very materialistic of you, but cool. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. You're right. Everybody has their own choice. Everybody could do whatever the fuck you want. But I guess the message before we wrap this up is whatever you set your heart out to do it. Don't do things because of what people say or what's in or what's not in. Just do what your heart wants at the end of the day.